So here we are, March of 2019. Beautiful day, high 30s, low 40s. That's really warm for this time of year where I am. I decided I'm going to come on out to the bunkhouse. I'm going to kick back. I'm going to put down a moxie or two, get a little bit of chores done, and get outside and do some shooting, something that I like to do. And then it happened. Like a ton of bricks, it fell into my lap and I have to deal with it. Someone sent me a tweet sent out by Joe Scarborough from MSNBC, and typically I would just ignore this kind of thing, but this particular one is such an absolute glittering jewel of colossal ignorance that it can't go unchallenged. So let's go out to the range. I'll get my inside stuff done later on, and let's school Joe Scarborough a little bit and see maybe if we can make some sense of this ridiculous anti-gun debate. So let's talk a little bit here in the bunkhouse before we head out to the range, because it's pretty windy and that raises hell with the microphone. And there's a couple things that we should discuss first. I'm curious as to whether you've ever had a conversation with someone, not just a simple one either, but like something heated and passionate, and you're talking about two entirely different things. And nothing is making sense, and nobody can click, and nobody wants to give, and everybody's sure that they're right. And let's say you're discussing the merits of having lasagna for supper, and the other person is discussing buying a brand new hammer. I mean, think where that conversation would go. Well, it's too spicy before bedtime. Well, that doesn't make any sense. We need this around the house to get some work done. That kind of stupidity is what we're dealing with as gun owners, as people that use firearms and understand and study and manufacture and make and break and utilize these things. That's what we're dealing with when we're trying to have a conversation with an anti-gunner. The things that they say are so far removed from reality. That's a polite way to say absolute ridiculous, outright fantasy lies, that it's hard to even come back and have it make any sense. And to make things worse, once you can explain or prove a point, like we always can because we have 100% of the facts on our side, they'll typically shut you out of the conversation. They'll puff out their chest. And I mean, it's like playing chess with a pigeon. And they walk all around on the board and knock all the pieces off and puff up their chest and they shit all over the board. And then they walk off as though you're foolish and they won. That's what it's like trying to talk to some of these people. And today, Joe Scarborough gets to an elevated position that most people never would. This is the stupidest thing, without a doubt, that I've heard on the whole firearms argument spectrum for a very long time. Now I'm going to read to you what Joe Scarborough tweeted today. And I couldn't remember this. I have to read it from the screen because I can't commit stupidity of this level to memory. It'll make things all messed up for days and days and days. From Joe Scarborough. Okay, those suggesting the AR15 was not developed as a weapon of war should read up on history. See, we're stupid. He knows. We're stupid. We have to read on history. This is his reason. The AR-15 was designed as a military weapon to replace the M14. Eugene Stoner designed it to be lighter and more lethal than the M14. It was far deadlier than the M16 used in Vietnam. Holy crap. Where do we even start? All right, Joe Scarborough. I've done a little bit of research, a little bit of history on the AR-15. Matter of fact, I wrote a book about it called The Evolution of the Black Rifle. Joe, you might want to read it yourself. But for starters, the AR-15 is not more powerful than the M14. The M14 is chambered in 7.62 by 51. The AR-15 is 5.56 by 45. It is far less powerful than the M14. And the second part of your statement, the AR-15 is much deadlier than the M16 used in Vietnam. What a dolt. The M16 is a full auto variant of the civilian version, the AR-15. So it's not only something different and more powerful than an M16, it is a neutered civilian version of the M16. But it only fires in semi-automatic, where the M16 fires in full automatic. Unbelievable, huh? That is the biggest problem with this entire debate. We've got two groups of people. You've got people on the right that say, we're not giving anything else up. We've been losing things piece by piece by piece since 1934. Took another hit in 1968. We took another hit in 1986. We took another hit in 1994. I mean, we just continuously keep losing, and we tell you it's not going to affect the crime rate because it only affects people that follow the law, i.e. don't commit crimes. And instead of reevaluating that and saying, gee, why don't the things we do affect the crime rate? The left doubles down and says, well, it's obvious we need more gun control. That's really smart. When something really doesn't work, you should like double it and do it again, because then it might really work, not whatever. But Joe Scarborough wants us to do some research. He's not going to want you just listening to, a knuckle-dragging trigger puller like me. So let's do some video. Let's shoot an AR15 and let's shoot an M16. And let's see if you can tell the difference. Obviously to Joe, the AR-15 is much more powerful. But let's see if our impression of actually using one gives us the same impression. Here is a standard capacity feeding device, and we're going to use this in both the AR-15 that we're going to fire first, and then in the M16 variant that we're going to fire second. So what I'm going to do to make this quick and easy and simple, and we take home the knowledge Joe wants us to have, is I'm going to squeeze the trigger for about a second, and then I'm going to let go. I'm going to squeeze the trigger for about a second again, and I'm going to let go. So first, let's try it with the AR-15 version. Squeeze the trigger for a second, let go. Squeeze the trigger for a second, let go. See how fast it fires. I think you get the point. Now, let's try the M16. So we'll do the same thing with the M16. Squeeze the trigger for a second, let go, squeeze the trigger for a second again, and repeat. The M16 this time. Well, there's definitely a difference, but I don't think that the AR-15, the first one we fired, is a much more powerful version of this one by any means. So I think that's pretty clear. The AR-15 is a semi-automatic, neutered, civilian version of the M16 that everybody likes to point at and call a bad gun. It has zero in common with this M16 that is highly regulated and was banned from manufacture for any civilians to own on May 19th of 1986. It's pretty easy to look up. The guns that the gun grabbers actively today want to ban are semi-automatic variants of those guns. Guns that look like them. Self-loading rifles. You squeeze the trigger, it ejects the empty casing, loads another one, and you can let off the trigger and shoot it again without having to manually reload it. It's exactly the same as every single other self-loading rifle designed since the late 1800s. It is identical in technology and in mechanism. And if you want something that is absolutely identical, maybe even enough to be considered research for Joe Scarborough, the AR-15 in its current configuration was manufactured starting in the late 1950s to early 1960s. And up until 1968, you and I used to be able to order them through a catalog and have it delivered through the mail to our home. So there is no Pandora's box that's just opened up and we somehow have to close it. There are all kinds of other problems that we have to address. But once again, falling on that failed path of blaming an inanimate object and then scratching our heads and our rear ends 10 years from now wondering why that didn't work is not one of them. That's completely unacceptable. It's time for the people that don't understand firearms to educate themselves. Once they do, one of two things is going to happen. One, they're potentially going to be extremely irritated that the anti-gunners are lying to them, that the gun that they want to ban is absolutely 100% that same old hunting rifle as Dad and Grandpa have had on the wall for the last 50, 60, 80 years. That's going to irritate them. Or they're going to be relieved and find that the gun that they've been told is so prolific, that's all over the streets, that's given to children, that's sold under the table at gun shows, hasn't even existed legally for over 30 years. So nothing but win for those guys. They won. But you and I, as gun owners, as firearms enthusiasts, as people that utilize them, that understand the technology, you know, like like the other brains like Joe Scarborough, we're not giving anything up anymore. We're all done. There's no more compromise. We're not accepting any type of loss anymore. All we do is lose continuously. Continuously we lose and have things taken away and are forced to comply with that because we have a desire to be law-abiding individuals. And we're not doing that anymore. This is based 100% on fantasy. The AR-15 is not only not more powerful than regular hunting rifles, it's far less powerful than regular hunting rifles, and those will be about that far away from the next man once these are gone, and it will be obvious that nothing has changed again, because it never will. Well, thanks for the opportunity to rant a little bit here online. I really had some other plans out here today, and I appreciate you passing the information on to people that need to know it. This really isn't a two-sided argument, pro-gun people, anti-gun people. There are a whole bunch of people in the middle that have been lied to viciously. And I found that the great majority of them, once they actually understand the truth, which is black and white, tend to get pretty annoyed with the non-gun, the anti-gun people that have been pushing this agenda through. Now, I know that none of us are as brilliant, you know, and well-learned and studied as Joe Scarborough, so you may want to pick up a copy of my book, The Evolution of the Black Rifle. Doesn't know as much as Joe knows. It's not going to teach us that much. You definitely won't learn the things that Joe knows. But if you're interested in the AR-15, the black rifle, the 416, the M4, you might be interested in it. There'll be a link to it in the description below this video. Till next time, have fun and be safe.